that motherfucker, Putin, has had probably one of the largest impacts of any individual outside of the United States out of anyone else on American politics. I feel like as Americans, we are constantly at a bit of a disadvantage with the fact that, for the most part, we Americans don't know jack shit about the world outside. We don't learn much about world history, so much as we learn a lot about American history. We're trained from a young age to really only care about America and to see the rest of the world as, like, not mattering, not existing, not having any bearing on us. And because of that, we become very isolationist, but on top of that, it's meant that we lack a lot of insight that we could gain from the politics and the landscapes of other countries, notably Russia. You see, I think America is on track to become the next Russia. That has become a pretty popular talking point in recent weeks since the election results came out, and I truly have started to believe it. I've actually done a little bit of research on Putin's rise, how he has managed to brainwash the Russian people into seeing him as this cult-like figure. And man, it is really similar to how Trump rose to power. I've got a video here. It's actually a bit old. It's 2 years old. It's called How Putin Brainwashed Russia to Invade Ukraine. And this video covers a lot of topics, primarily how Putin has waged an information war as he has risen to power and as he has held it. Now this extends far and wide. You know how Trump will do things like, when he knows he's going to be investigated for something bad he did, he'll fake predict that, like, the government's going to go after him for something bogus? He'll predict it. Putin actually invented that strategy. Putin used to claim that opposition parties were going to attempt to kill their leaders and frame him for doing it in order to rally the people or rally violence against those that support him. This is almost one for one a Trump talking point. Putin used this and gained a lot of support. It's why when, like, Putin's rivals were assassinated, captured, went missing, etc., instead of it drawing attention to Putin in a negative way, it was seen as Putin actually predicting what would happen all along. That his opposition tried to take him down by framing him and false flagging him, and he knew it all along, he called it, and he was right. Doesn't this sound like the kind of thing Trump does? Tells his fan base that there's going to be accountability or some sort of pushback against him ahead of time, and then when it happens, inevitably, countless people see him as this omniscient figure. Oh my god, he predicted it, he called it. What he said was going to happen, happened, oh my god. You know? That's just one example of the types of methods that Putin has used to brainwash his own people. Here, we're going to talk about how he's brainwashed his people to be in favor of invading Ukraine, and I think you're going to find that a lot of his information, or I should say anti-information tactics, are terrifyingly similar to what is taking hold with the American people right now. I don't think America's the next Nazi Germany so much as we might be the next Russia. Take a look.
Is the aggressor. Ukraine is attacking Russia, and Ukraine President Zelensky is a Nazi. Now, these are of course false, insane claims, but some of Russia actually believes this. You see, if you want to start a war, especially in the 21st century and especially in Europe, you need the citizens' clear support. And Putin had this, or at least enough of it. But the way he went about gaining the support was by a clear and masterfully orchestrated disinformation campaign across all Russian media outlets.
Oh, this is a really good video, and it's also from a smaller channel, so I want to shout it out. Actually, not quite a smaller channel. They have 6,000 more subs than me. They're at 106K. But, Versed. The channel's called Versed. The video itself is criminally underviewed. 6.4K views on such a great video, by the way. So I'm going to drop it in YouTube and website chat. And hopefully my editor includes it in the description of this video when it goes out on its own. But highly recommend you check this out. It's by Versed, and it's called How Putin Brainwashed Russia to Invade Ukraine. So if anyone wants to watch the original video, highly recommend you do. Go send some support. That is how you can find it.
outlets. Now, Russia and disinformation isn't a new thing. It goes back decades. From the time
I mean, those two words are literally, like, synonymous to me. Like, Russia and disinformation, like, when I hear the word disinformation, I think Russia. It's like a Rorschach test.
of the Soviet Union to the 2008 Russo-Georgian War to the illegal annexation of Crimea in 2014, you can
Hassan defended that, by the way.
easily spot disinformation campaigns being employed all over the place. And that finally brings us to February 24th, 2022, when Russian President Vladimir Putin launched a full-scale invasion against Ukraine. The same methods of disinformation used in the 2014 annexation of Crimea are
Did I, like, accidentally slow down the video or something? What the fuck? Oh, I did. I did slow it down a little. Huh. I must have hit a hotkey. Anyway.
basically being used again today. You know, like the genocide claim, for example, with Putin saying the Ukrainians are committing genocide against Russians in the Donbas region. It's simple and always works, because it's primarily aimed at an already receptive audience who's been fed news about how terrible Ukrainians are for years. Except
Sound familiar to Trump's narrative about how Americans are dying because of immigrants invading the border? Right now, like, every time there's a thing that the right can blow up into a big scandal, they do it. At one point, it was a dead squirrel. A squirrel was, like, euthanized, and they turned that into a culture war thing, like right before the election, Peanut the squirrel. But right now, it's this woman who was murdered by an illegal immigrant. And so, overwhelmingly, a lot of Americans, left and right, are, you know, on this right-wing culture war thing, because the talking point is he should have never been in the country to commit that crime in the first place. And most Americans hear that and they think, yeah, why are we letting immigrants in this country when some percentage of them could eventually commit a crime? They shouldn't even be here to do it in the first place. That's the logic that a lot of people are going with. And so if you can convince the people they're under attack, they'll support you if you're the one claiming to be the only person who can defend them. Trump has done this, so has Putin.
Except now, it's way more intense. Putin isn't as strong as he's been in the past, economically and politically. His approval rating has been sitting in the low 60s for a few years, when it's usually at least 75%. So there's been an increased focus on the
Psychotically high approval ratings for any politician, by the way. I don't believe those. We don't, like, Trump had record low approval ratings. Biden had record low approval ratings. Maybe it's just an American thing, but the idea of a 60% approval rating is insane to me.
the justification of the war. Russia's goal is to create so many different, and sometimes even contradictory, versions of what is happening at the border, so that no one can really differentiate the true from the false anymore. And it's
breakneck bullshit. There's so many lies that taking the time to debunk them means you've already lost, because 500 more have been thrown out there by the time you finish debunking the ones that were already made.
definitely been working. Putin's approval rating has only surged since the invasion of Ukraine, reaching 71%, the highest it's been since May 2018. As for the process of brainwashing Russian citizens, it starts from the Kremlin. They fabricate tons of stories and have high-ranking officials speak about them. Take, for instance, the leaders of the self-proclaimed People's Republic.
Notably, if we go back to his approval ratings, the last time they spiked was the annexation of Crimea in 2014. Massive spike, and a drop, obviously, because the people who don't like Putin really hated that, while the people who liked Putin really liked it. And that maintained a lot of support for Putin annexing Crimea. The people were in favor of that, mind you. And then a drop for a while for, I don't know, any number of given reasons, probably authoritarianism, and then polarize the people in favor of another war, and now Putin's approval ratings are rising.
21%, the highest it's been since May 2018. As for the process of brainwashing Russian citizens, it starts from the Kremlin. They fabricate tons of stories and have high-ranking officials speak about them. Take, for instance, the leaders of the self-proclaimed People's Republic of Donetsk and Luhansk, Denis Pushilin and Leonid Pasechnik. They are both basically puppets of Moscow. In the days leading up to the invasion, they both urged their citizens to flee in anticipation of a possible Ukrainian attack. This was, of course, never going to happen. And in fact, here you can see that foreign ministers of both Germany and France made a joint statement saying that it's a staged incident and could be misused as a pretext for possible military escalation, which of course was. But it didn't matter. As soon as there was anti-Ukraine propaganda, it was spread throughout all of Russia in various systematic ways, with the most obvious way being television. Basically, all of the most watched television channels in Russia are state-owned, as you can see here, and 74% of Russians get their information from them, so it's easy access to the majority of Russia's population.
Sound like Fox News and right-wing media dominating the landscape? If all the people get their information from disinformation artists, then what can you even do? You end up as Russia. America is becoming this. This is what America is turning into if we do not stop it now. You're starting to get what I mean now when I say the comparisons, the similarities are stark, like very, very clearly, like they're right there, like holy shit, the Republicans are just doing a Putin. They're just following Putin's playbook and doing what he did to gain power.
Channel 1 and Russia 1, two of the largest TV stations in Russia, as well as basically every other TV channel in Russia, echoed what the leaders of the DPR and LPR said, and added on, accusing Ukraine of committing war crimes in the Donbas region, from using humans as shields to deliberately positioning strike systems in residential areas to
a big reason why I initially stopped liking Hassan, like when the straw that broke the camel's back was how many talking points Hassan was repeating from these outlets about Ukraine, mind you. Particularly the claims that Ukrainians are Nazis, the claims that what was it, the something sector snipers were like far right militia. Yeah. Gun Invalid, if you keep saying that stream died when it hasn't, I'm going to mute you. You got to stop announcing stream's dead when it's not. It's not good etiquette.
Intensely shelling cities. Basically, every TV channel in Russia spoke about how Ukraine was forcing these Donbas citizens to flee, and how Russia is ready to accept and help the refugees, because they're so gracious. And it's not like any of these TV stations can report anything different, as TV stations are required by the media watchdog Roskomnadzor, also known as the Federal Service for Supervision of Communications, Information Technology, and Mass Media, to follow the official narrative. The newspapers all essentially say the same thing as well, and with them being the second most popular media source in Russia after television, they served as a valuable secondary weapon in getting this message across. Now, of course, this wasn't all Russia said to justify the war. In fact, it was just a piece of the bigger picture. Let me introduce to you Dmitry Kiselyov, a master in propaganda who's been working in the media since the times
Think of this as Putin's Bannon
of the Soviet Union, and is known as Putin's mouthpiece. He claimed just days before the invasion that the US's warning about an upcoming Russian invasion of Ukraine actually meant the opposite. That in the next few days, America and Ukraine will be the one to provoke Russia in order to claim that the Donbas and Russia have attacked Ukraine. Now, this is an extremely important tactic of Russian disinformation that actually has multiple dimensions to it. It portrays Russia as the one who will never attack unless to defend itself, as well as sets the global stage as essentially the West versus Russia. This is partially why Putin's approval rating is so high, as he's seen as the defender of Russia from the evil West and evil NATO. But in the end,
it doesn't matter how obvious reality is. Even the soldiers fighting against Ukraine have bought into this propaganda, and they will ignore what's right in front of them to believe what the big strong man who makes them feel strong, their country feels strong and successful and powerful, who they feel like everyone likes. They want to also like him. They want to be part of the club. No one wants to not be a part of the club where everyone's having fun. It's the same logic of how MAGA blew up.
We saw Russia was the one who amassed over 100,000 troops along the border of Ukraine, then created fake allegations to act as if Ukraine provoked them into the war, to try and justify the invasion. And this brings us to the final piece of the Putin brainwashing puzzle, and that is misguided patriotism. Russian media has drawn consistent connections between the current conflict we see now and World War II, which Russia refers.
If you're against Putin, the war, or have any criticism of Russian foreign policy, then you're anti-Russian. You're anti-patriotic. You're the enemy within. You're the enemy within. If you are opposed to the war, if you protest against it. Trump's goal is to make America the next Russia and to be the next Putin. That has always been his goal, and he's closer to it than ever.
To as the Great Patriotic War. In the words of Russian Press Secretary Dmitry Peskov, part of the purpose of this conflict is the denazification of Ukraine. The plan was to basically allege that Ukraine's government is pro-Nazi and that the whole country is going through a concerning Nazification phase, ultimately convincing Russians that they needed to jump in and save Ukrainians from the Nazis. Capitalizing on Russian pride.
Remember, to get such high approval ratings, the Russian left and right have to buy into the cult of personality. We are watching that happen in real time right now, where leftists are genuinely jumping on the Trump train because they have fallen for the narrative that that their isolationist policies are best to stop American imperialism. This idea that, oh, we're fighting this war to stop Nazis is how progressives in Russia have been fooled into supporting Putin as well.
from World War II has been done before and is a calculated move. Remember, they refer to it as the Great Patriotic War, and it's remembered as a moment of national greatness and sacrifice. And it definitely was, don't get me wrong. But that's the thing, the Russian government has tried to draw historical parallels of the current crisis with the Great Patriotic War, in a bid to invoke the same patriotic feelings, sacrifices, and emotions. The plan worked, obviously, due to the existence of very small, ultra-nationalist groups gaining traction in Ukraine. And yes, they have used Nazi insignia, made Hitler salutes, and used anti-Semitic rhetoric, but the whole—
Believe it or not, every country that has people in it also has shitty people in it. Basically, it's like if a country invaded America and then started showing, like, the Unite the Right rally to say, see, America, every American's a Nazi. It's just a Nazi country. Obviously, looking a little more true now after the election results, but, you know, I mean more so like prior, a few weeks ago, you know, before we knew America was cooked. Like, it would basically be like saying, oh, look, there's a population of dumb fucks in this country. That's everybody. That's why we get to invade them. Hassan also used this logic to justify China and their imperialism over Tibet. I don't know if you guys saw it, but it was one of the big clips that led to the ending. It's one of the things that led to the end of Leftovers. Man, those are all purple links. I guess I read about this recently. Let me bring up this video. Yeah, so when I say that progressives fall for these talking points, this is what I mean. This is how people like progressive people get brainwashed into supporting imperialism and fascism.
But like,
go ahead.
Tibet was literally a fucking feudal slave mandate, like so autonomous zone.
China did them a favor.
That was one. I mean, in America, when I say something like this, people get very upset. You know, we talk about the Dalai Lama saying "suck my tongue" or whatever, but like, that's not far from the norm in fucking normal Tibetan existence before the Communist Party came in and
so China unilaterally took over Tibet,
like
these are their culture.
This is why if you're a Hassan fan or anywhere adjacent to the left, like that's associated with Hassan, you've probably heard a lot of slander about H3H3, Ethan Klein, because if you actually take a second to look at any of the clips that have led to their friendship falling apart, you'll see everything Hassan has said about Ethan is a lie, and he is desperately poisoning the well against Ethan Klein. Desperately, because it was stuff like this that led to their podcast ending and their friendship falling apart. Not this, like, idea that Ethan couldn't be friends with a Zionist anymore, because Ethan's not even a Zionist. Like, I guess if you consider Zionism to be not believing that Israel should be wiped out, I guess he would be, but he's fully against the war, he's fully against settlement building and expansionism of Israel, he's against Netanyahu, he's against, like, the government of Israel, he's extremely critical of it. Like, there's the only take you could take issue with in regards to Israel and Gaza that Ethan has is that he doesn't think Israel shouldn't exist anymore, right? Like, I mean, if you believe that Israel should stop existing, then where do you think half of the world's Jews should go? Because that is the population of Israel, half the world's Jews. So, I mean, it's a bit of an extreme position to want to no longer have there be an Israel.
They basically are trying to, you know, homogenize the culture.
If your culture,
they're trying to spoil the religion and the identity.
The part of feudal warlords and slavery, abolishing that, yes, I do think that is good.
No, China did them a favor.
I think that, yes, I will be on the record
just
to
like
state
America did it.
That while the Chinese government,
I'm not going to say it.
Well, there is no equivalent in American intervention that you can point to in a similar capacity, unless you're talking about.
Okay, so
and I think this is a good way to describe Taiwan as well. The American federal government going into the fucking South and killing, unfortunately not all of them, but a decent amount of slavers and defenders of slavery. This is
also him being against Taiwan, because China is supposedly just stopping slavery in Taiwan. That's why. This is also his anti-Taiwan take.
Violent.
Were y'all thinking I was joking or exaggerating when I talked about Hassan literally being a dyed-in-the-wool tanky? Like, he is a full-on tanky, fully pro-Russia, fully pro-China, fully pro-imperialism as long as it's a country opposed to America. He is literally, like, a psyop. He is hurting the left. No, I watched Destiny. Frankly, I would rather you all watch Destiny than you watch Hassan. 1,000 times over. Please. Unsub from Hassan and watch Destiny instead. I promise you, you will experience far less brain damage.
Violent retribution from a powerful federal government that squashed, okay?
Tibet is the
Or better yet, play Destiny.
South in the Civil War?
Yes. Tibet in the time frame where Chinese intervention happened would be the South. Yes,
So
they were doing slavery.
What was the
they were
moral
feudal.
aspect of the war of China?
The interests are obviously like national security or whatever the fuck they claim, but ultimately the reality.
So yeah, Hassan's a dumbass, but he's also one of the most prominent progressive voices in the American left, and he's falling for this foreign propaganda. When I say that the American progressive population is not immune to MAGA, I'm not joking. I'm really not. I would not be surprised if we see Hassan calling Trump's moves to defund our military based. I won't be surprised if we see Hassan saying, man, MAGA's made me pleasantly surprised. It will not surprise me. Populism is populism. It is separate from left and right. It's genuinely a cancer.
The whole narrative of Ukraine is becoming a breeding ground for Nazis is an exaggeration, since these ultra-nationalist groups had a meager 2% of the votes back in the 2019 election, whereas Zelensky, who won the election, had 73% of the votes. And to be fair, most countries in Europe have, in one way or another, a politically insignificant ultra-nationalist group. Russia has for years highlighted the activity of a marginal group of Ukrainian ultra-nationalists as a way of trying to paint all of Ukraine the same, and the term Ukranazis was even created by propagandists to describe them. What's most notable about this claim, though, is the fact that the Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky, is a Jew himself. Furthermore, his grandfather and his grandfather's 3 brothers were part of the Soviet Red Army who fought against the Nazis, and only his
literally, like, rolled in and liberated countless concentration camps, yeah. Zelensky's, like, father and grandfather, was it father and grandfather? Were part of the army that, like, the Nazis were so scared they were burning and destroying the evidence of concentration camps when those armies were moving in, because they knew it was Jover once the USSR, the Red Army moved in and just fucking crushed all of the like, eastern front of the Nazis. They just rolled on in. And this was a big... I know all this because I have to debate Nazis who, like modern Nazis who do Holocaust denial. They'll point to missing pieces of evidence or things that supposedly should have been in certain concentration camps that without them being there, I guess they couldn't have been a concentration camp. But in reality, the Nazis immediately started destroying the evidence once they found out the Red Army was coming. So yeah, it doesn't matter, though. It doesn't matter how far from reality the accusation is. The people buy it because they're not allowed to be exposed to the counter argument, much less do they have an interest in seeking it out.
Grandfather survived. Not to mention, he lost many other family members during the war. Now, remember, this all came before the invasion. So imagine you're living in Russia and seeing the crisis through the lens of what Russia is showing its citizens. You've been hearing about all these evil acts committed by Ukrainians for years, and especially an increased amount in the past few months. Finally, in the early hours of February 24th, 2022, Putin makes an emboldened speech, denouncing NATO and the West, talking about how similar the current situation is to the Great Patriotic War, how the people of Donbass have asked Russia for help, and how it's Russia's duty and responsibility to protect their brothers who basically belong to the true motherland. They have no other option. So he announces a special peacekeeping operation to save the day. Obviously, this is claimed as good news and a historic day even, so you want to find out more about it. You go on the internet and look up Sputnik, a very popular Russian news site with an audience of millions, so it's definitely the real deal. This is what you see. Obviously, to an outsider's view, you know this is an invasion, but in Russian media, the words invasion, offensive, assault, and declaration of war are banned. Instead, it's described as a demilitarization operation, targeting military infrastructure, or a special military/peacekeeping operation to defend the people's republics. So that is what you get. And of course, don't forget about the obligatory Ukraine is a...
I haven't seen this particular video, by the way. I know the subject matter because I've been researching it lately, because ever since this Trump win, I've recognized the parallels between Russia and America and all of this, and I've wanted to deep dive it. In this video, I got it sent to me as, like, apparently a really good synopsis. I haven't seen it before, but this is a really good video. This is my first time watching it. It's really good. Like, this is doing a really good job of putting everything together and helping me to make the point that I wanted to make at the start. And I'm glad, because I hadn't seen this yet. It could have just, like, not turned out as good as I thought it would be. This was recommended to me as, like, a good sort of synopsis to work from to talk about this topic.
The country of Nazis post, as that's crucial in reinforcing the cause being important. Nevertheless, that is what you will see if you're in Russia, and it's not just limited to Sputnik. All of the largest Russian sites talk about this, like RT, or formerly Russian Today, for example. If you decide to get information from social media, say VKontakte, also known as Russia's Facebook, and is also Russia's most popular social media network, you will find essentially all the same thing.
To be fair, Facebook is Russia's Facebook right now. Like, they've got VKonte, or Vonkatatke, or whatever it's pronounced, and they've also got Facebook. So, yeah.
As on the internet. They're basically state-owned too, after Gazprom, Russia's state-owned energy conglomerate, acquired majority control of it. They've already begun banning independent media producers and acts on orders from the Kremlin. As for what's become of television after the invasion,
familiar?
well, it's basically the same as before, but now there's an increase in cunningly produced talk shows, some of which have been airing extra hours since the war started. They usually talk about how it's necessary to subdue Ukrainian Nazis who kill civilians, how America and the rest of the EU is trying to kill Russia through sanctions and other retributive measures, how great the mission is, and even challenge the notion of an independent Ukraine, saying it's historically a part of Russia. Though, as of recently, these talk shows have become more radical. Speaking on Russia 24, Eduard Bashurin, the deputy head of the Donetsk People's Republic militia, spoke about Mariupol being a concentration camp. Then there's Dmitry Kiselyov, the Russian propagandist who anchors News of the Week on Russia 1. He began his show Sunday by saying Kiev would be forced to answer for war crimes and genocide. And he also talked about concentration camps as well as
Remember, as you invade, you claim to be the victim that's fighting against oppression.
mass executions. But again,
The same way MAGA and the right have fought the entire culture war in America. Constantly being the aggressor, constantly attacking people who just want to live their lives and have rights, and framing it as your attacks on them being a self-defensive action to save the country.
this is all calculated. I think the BBC said it best, and I quote, "Russian state television appears to employ techniques of psychological conditioning designed to excite extreme emotions of aggression and hatred in the view."
I would not be surprised if Russia and Putin and the government ran, like, multi-million-dollar focus group programs to figure out psychologically the most effective way to brainwash people. This has actually become a really interesting topic of mine, is like how feeble the human brain actually is. Do you guys know about the Cocomelon intro? This shit is grim, bro. This shit is fucking grim. So, Cocomelon is a slop YouTube channel that has been associated... It's like the biggest kids channel there is. They pull immense viewership. It is possibly one of the biggest channels in all of YouTube. There have been a lot of studies done that have shown that kids who have relied on Cocomelon as a go-to form of entertainment, unlike, say, like Dora the Explorer or like Bob the Builder or like classic children's programming that was deliberately designed to educate children while entertaining them, Cocomelon is just slop. It was made purely as entertainment and just to keep kids entertained and not like making a fuss while their parents do what they need to do. And a lot of parents are not aware of how brain rot slop Cocomelon is. There's been connections between lower literacy and slower development of speech capabilities in children who regularly consume Cocomelon. And on top of that, you know for a fact they figured this out with some sort of like test, but the Cocomelon intro song is at some sort of frequency that will make your baby run to the TV. I'm not joking. I'm sure some of these videos are, you know, of kids who like Cocomelon and recognize the noise, but a lot of these are just parents that like heard about this and tested it and recorded it. If you play the Cocomelon intro, a kid who has never seen Cocomelon will react like these videos. Watch how fucking grim this is. There is some psychological fuckery that has gone on here. Like some fucking with the human mind to make this a thing. Watch. That's... This one's probably a meme. That one's probably a meme. Yeah, I saw a bunch of clips on Twitter, and it's like people playing it on their TV, and their kid runs in from another room, like usually like a baby, like a toddler, and it's like, dude, there's some like weird, they did like a study where they had like a room full of children, and they like made a bunch of jingles like this and found which ones make the kids snap their heads towards the source of the sound, and they made that the jingle at the start. I guarantee you. I feel like that there is ways to find easy hacks to people's brains that these insidious, very wealthy corporations and governments have the ability to figure out. I would not be surprised if Russia and Putin's government didn't like do a study where they figured out the best, most effective strategy to brainwash people, and recognizing its success, the Republican Party, MAGA, and Trump employed those exact tactics since 2016. That is what I think has been going on here. Russia found the key to brainwashing a population, and now world leaders across the planet are following the same footsteps Putin did. The human brain is feeble, and people are stupid. If a jingle can make children instinctually run to the TV, then surely a certain way of making a person think can make them forget reality and start making it up as they go along.
Viewer. But none of this should appear surprising. In 2014, Russian hacker group Shalte Bolte published leaked Kremlin documents telling journalists to justify the Crimean annexation, praise Vladimir Putin's development plans, and depict Ukraine as swarming with fascists. Like I said, everything is just being recycled. So as a Russian viewer, it's hard to see any other sides to the story. And this is what leads me onto my final point about how Putin essentially has brainwashed Russia, Putin's digital iron curtain. Just like the Great Firewall in China, Russia has started to roll out their own version of it. Here's again a list of Russia's top social media networks. As of right now, Russia has banned Instagram and Facebook for extremist activities. Twitter is...
TikTok will be next. TikTok will almost certainly be next because that's a holdout of progressive talking points. I wouldn't be surprised if most of Russian lefties are on TikTok right now. Expect that to get yeeted ASAP. Like, as soon as that can possibly be banned, that's getting banned. There's no way TikTok... Unless, I mean, outside of, like, the bot farms. But, yeah, like, Putin does not want his people on TikTok, I bet.
Is getting increasingly harder to use and may end up being banned. And YouTube may as well, after Russia's Union of Journalists recently accused YouTube of censorship and called for punishment. Many international news networks from around the world have also pulled out of Russia after Russia passed the new fake news law, making it a major crime to spread what is deemed fake.
Man, where did I hear... That's familiar! I feel like I've heard that one before.
News about their invasion in Ukraine, and could result in a 15-year prison sentence.
Someone in YouTube chat who probably just arrived said, "Explain how Cenk is bending the knee to Trump. Dumb white boy show!" If you're wondering what kind of progressives fall for Russian propaganda, that kind. That kind is ready to suck Putin's dick. Just like mouth wrenched open, throat widened and loosened, ready to swallow a Putin load. Those are the people on the left who will fall for an oligarchical fascist's propaganda.
All of these things combine to create an iron curtain that is truly
I will say the line "dumb white boy show" goes crazy. I got cooked with that one. I don't think I'll ever recover.
Connected Russia from a lot of the world, as well as from each other. On the bright side, we know this can't go on indefinitely. Demand for VPNs in Russia was 2,692% higher on March 14th than it was in the week prior to the invasion, according to Top 10 VPN, a privacy monitoring service.
But the drop really goes to show you how little, like after less than a month, how little interest there is among the people to seek out the truth. There's a spike on the day of an event to seek out the truth, and after that, it gets stark. People lose interest and memory hole things at an astonishing rate. Look at that. Just put out in data how fast people stop caring about the truth.
Prior to the invasion, according to Top 10 VPN, a privacy monitoring service. Although the demand has gone down, it's still just about 500% above normal, which is insane. Many Russians are curious to know the other side, and many already do. We've seen anti-war protests all around Russia. We've seen courageous journalists live on Russian television protest the war, like Marina Ovsyannikova, for example. And we've seen people around the world begin to try to penetrate Putin's fierce propaganda bubble, and it can't hold out forever. Although a lot of tactics have been copied from the successful 2014 misinformation campaigns, this time there's been far less success with it, and the brave dissidents of Russia will not go down easily.
Based based. Because once again, I want to be clear, the Russian people are not bad. There are countless Russians who are not happy with the state of their country. I've got Russian fans. I don't want them to like suffer. Like I don't want them to suffer from the consequences of Putin's actions. I don't think Putin should be in power, nor do they want Putin to be in power. This is a case in which the Ukrainian people and the Russian people are victims of the oligarchy's plots to hold power. Even in 2014, when I was 13 years old, I hated Putin. Are you Russian? I'm moderate left, but I hate Putin. I hated him even when I was a conservative. Are you Russia or a Russian? CF3300? I have a decent amount of Russian viewers, not a ton, but a few, and they have to use VPNs to watch me, I guess. So, oh, not Russian. Damn, I thought I had an in, guys. Listen, I'm currently planning to go to Russia and do the funniest thing ever. All right, I need a Russian fan to provide me a place to stay while I'm there. I got to do something. I got to go there and handle some problems, guys. The Russian people as a whole don't deserve anything the same as the Israeli people. A government's actions do not taint the people's own rights. Exactly, right? Ride the Trans-Siberian Railway? Yeah, I could just go in through Siberia, true. Do something funny. That doesn't sound shady. Dude, the day Putin dies of a heart attack or something like that, I'm just going to tweet, all right, I'm back from Russia. Stream today is going to go crazy. And leave it at that. Very normal activities shall occur. Anyway, with all that said, in Minecraft, all of that was said in Minecraft, by the way, then please consider leaving a like if you enjoyed. Obviously, comment as well, whether you're watching live or when this goes up as its own video. Every single like is like casting a blue ballot for YouTube to push my content to more people in the algorithm. I really do appreciate it. Please consider dropping a like, a comment, a sub, ring the bell icon, and follow my social medias linked down below, especially my Blue Sky. And don't forget to join my fan Discord as well. It's the main hub of my fan base and community, and at least once a week, notably tomorrow, I host gaming events, call-in streams, or watch parties, and I also announce all my new uploads and streams. So if you want to be a part of that, make sure you're in my Discord. And of course, finally, if you want to support me directly, you can afford it and you feel like it, consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or support me financially through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, or buy some merch, the Streamlabs link down below. Regardless of how you support me though, thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a good one.